First order of business is to heat up your mic.
All right.
Button's right down here. Okay. Well, thank y'all so much for being with us. It's really a pleasure and an honor to share the stage with y'all. I think we're going to learn a lot over the next 30 minutes or so. We should get some really nice insight from you guys. So now to dig out that insight from y'all, we got about a dozen questions to get through. We'll set aside 30-35 minutes for that.
Only softballs, please.
Oh, only softballs. Easy. Then we go to the audience, and got no control over the audience, right? So we'll give the audience a chance to take some shots at y'all, or rather ask some additional questions. We'll do that for maybe 10 minutes, depending on how much time we have. So let's get straight into it. We'll start with the first question. What role does TAB play in supporting small business growth, profitability, and resilience? Either one of y'all.
Well, first of all, you talked about all the stuff we do in the legislature. Every big bill that we do, right? We're talking about House Bill 5, which is our job security bill. Everything we do, whether it's major corporations, there's a subset that helps local business, right? Small business, because there's big participation. As you remember, the Toyota plant in San Antonio, we got a little bit of state incentive, and it was a big deal to Toyota, but we managed to put 10 minority businesses inside the plant. So in the things that we do, we advocate for big major corporations, whether it's big infrastructure, where it's electric vehicles or chip manufacturing. There's a component for small business. So again, we push at the big level, and as you probably saw last week, for the first time ever, the Texas Association of Business signed a business partnership MOU with the Texas Hispanic Coalition, Hispanic Chamber Coalition, between Glenn and an organization. So we're now integrated in the things we do for big business and small business.
And I want to thank Massey. I'm going to start with these comments. Leadership matters, and right now, so this is a little bit offensive, and Massey knows where I'm going with this, but right now, at this point in time, the Texas State Chamber, the Texas Association of Business, we have the very best chamber chair in America. There is no one with his experience running a chamber, having chaired the Hispanic chamber on the national, state, and local level, and now the statewide chamber. And structurally, Massey has made it very clear, all of our policies, and I mean all of them, will be beneficial to businesses of all sizes, of all kinds, all across this state. And Massey mentioned the MOU with the Texas Hispanic Chamber of the THCCC. I'm trying to get with the lingo. That was signed the last week or so. And Cynthia, I want to thank you for being one of the great leaders to sign this, because to have the Hispanic Chamber voices united around key policy items is really a big deal. And I know Massey's also put a lot of attention in making sure that we have great leadership in our small business committee that we have with Paula Mendoza and Rose chairing our economic development committee, and if I could say Mr. RGV, Sergio Contreras, chairing one of our region chairs. We have 7 regions, and Sergio's done a great job of helping us put together some great programming. So it's very important as we put together our policies that we're making sure that the policies line up with businesses of every size. And I think as we get through the questions, you'll see that all of the items that we're working on are beneficial to small businesses.
Thank you all for that. And I'm glad you mentioned leadership does matter. And thank you for pointing out a few of our great local leaders here. And there are many more in the room, so thank you to everybody. Let's talk about workforce development and higher education. The question here is Is higher education keeping pace with the demand of relevant high-need jobs?
The answer is that the state has a terrific higher education offerings. Arguably, I would not argue, I'd say it's the best in the country. Governor Abbott likes to say, and he's correct, that we have more tier 1 universities than any state in the country. And then you look at our excellent community college system. The 50 different community college systems in this state work very, very closely with the business community. In fact, I think we may have a few at our office tomorrow. Now, do we need to do more? Yes, but we need to do more in terms of making sure we're providing our community colleges additional resources, and it's connected to outcomes that employers need. And I want to tip my hat, Massey, I'm sure you would say this, but Woody Hunt, who chaired the Community College Finance Commission, really did a brilliant job working with businesses and community colleges to come up with a plan that right now, there's not everything is moving swimmingly through the legislature, but you can take it to the bank that there's likely to be $650 million or so of new funding that will go to our community college system in exchange for a greater focus on outcomes. And I also think you'll see more money for our university system as well for Texas State Community College system, which also does a very good job.
I want to answer it off of that as well. In the last legislative session, I think I pissed off the big universities because we had an initiative, Dr. Solis, you remember the TRUE initiative, technical reskilling, upskilling, we had last session. So I testified various times to the education committee because this money was going to community colleges, right? So like, let's say a major chip manufacturer comes to McAllen and said, we need to train 150 kids per semester, but they have to be specially trained. South Texas College can put together a program and the state would fund it. And so I was talking in front of all these other chancellors, the UT and A&M, and I said, you know, when we bring all this massive infrastructure money to Texas, yeah, we need about 10 lawyers, about 8 accountants, but I need 1,000 kids to read a blueprint. And those guys come out of community colleges. So the money needs to be in community colleges. And I walked out and John Sharp, those guys looking at me like, you just stole our money, dude. And the answer is yes, because South Texas College is one of the outstanding institutions in South Texas. But the thing is, job creation and the opportunities to fulfill a company. I chair the oversight committee for all economic incentives for Greg Abbott. So we get to see all these incentives that come across. And when major corporations look at Texas, they're looking for a couple of things, like where the most direct flights, close to a highway, airport, infrastructure, but where can I get training if I need a welder, they can do Excel spreadsheet. You know, it's not just something you can just have, but our community colleges are so agile, they can do that. And so yes, I think community colleges are keeping up. We are, when I first became chairman of economic development, Cynthia, remember in McAllen, Texas, in July of 2001, Rick Perry named me chairman of the Department of Economic Development. I didn't even know him. And he did it live at the thing. Well, I went around the world with Rick Perry, man. I probably traveled 100,000 miles around the world with Rick Perry. And they asked us, hey, how many industrial engineers does Texas have? No clue. How many mechanical engineers can we get? And we had no answer. We had no way of knowing. Now with what we have in our community colleges, and the Texas Association of Community Colleges, and the data, that makes us more kind of agile. When major corporations come to the state of Texas, and with Governor Abbott and Adriana Cruz, the head of economic development, interviews Tesla. He said, well, we're gonna need 1,000 guys who can assemble an electric vehicle. We can look to our community colleges to step up and do the training.
I'll also say that I believe it's important that in this budget that we get additional funding for things like career and technical education. And we've got a lot of great programs around the state, and those programs have been performing very, very well.
Very good. Thank you all for that. Massey, if you're feeling a little guilty from last session about the money going, there's still time this session to advocate for money. I'm just saying.
Well, I served 6 years in the Board of Regents, and we used to steal money because I used to steal. You don't steal. In case they steal, follow the same sentence, right? You know, there's a thing called in markup, an appropriations committee, It's like you come in stealth at a particular hour of the night. You take like 10 million for UT and you give it to A&M, and then Texas State takes it from A&M and goes to UT, and they shift these shells, shell game. And we got pretty good at taking money from each other. And the poor community colleges never had stood a chance. So I know we're giving you guys some money back.
Yeah, there's good focus on community colleges the last session into this one, and well deserved. So we're happy about that. Good segue for our next question. And I'm gonna go ahead through the first question and the follow-up. Is Texas positioned to benefit from nearshoring and emerging technology jobs? And the follow-up would be, where can we identify the shortfalls and how do we fix it? Is it the upskilling you mentioned a little bit ago? Is it technical schools, community colleges, four-year institutions, or just entrepreneurship?
We are in the best position of any state in the country by far to take advantage of what's happening, and that's the desire to move goods from Asia, from China, back to the United States and to North America. The tensions with China are not going to subside for quite some time. And there's also just practical reasons. You use less energy. There's a lot of other reasons why you would want to have as much goods manufactured. But this is one of the neat things, and I appreciated the introduction. So that you mentioned all the countries I've gone to. I just want to say for the record, my favorite country is Texas, just so people know that. But I came from Arizona, and we were very proud, very, very proud, that we built the trade with Mexico to 17 billion over a number of years. 17 billion. That's about half as much as Eagle Pass trades with Mexico. We trade 270 billion now with Mexico. Wall Street Journal just reported over 515 billion of the 700 billion. That's 81% of all the goods that cross into the United States from Mexico cross through Texas. And think about where we are. So, and Tesla was already mentioned. You think about what's going on here in Texas and now in Monterey. So the answer is, this is an incredible opportunity. Massey was a leader, and maybe you can talk a little bit about the EDA grant that you were able to get, but we have made it a major mission, thanks to Massey's leadership, to really blow out the Texas-Mexico trade and investment opportunities.
Yeah, first of all, my high school buddy, Ruben Bosque over there, he not believing that I did all this stuff, because I wouldn't like that in high school. Ruben, I think I learned a couple of things along the way. So, by Ruben with a bone crusher back in high school. So, anyhow, during COVID, all of us were at home, kind of concerned, what's the next thing going to happen? And none of us knew people were dying, and, we're all wearing masks and really unsure. So I've been working from home, and I hear my wife scream, what's that? The governor just said your name on TV. Like, oh shit, I'm going to jail. No clue what happened. And so he named me to the COVID task force. And I'll tell you that for the next 7 to 8 weeks, we're on calls and on Zoom for like 18 hours a day for 8 weeks. Because we had no idea what was happening, and why people were dying, and where it was coming from, and where was the medicine, and what happened to business and shutting down. I mean, we're being in a call with the governor. He says, on Monday, I'm shutting down all community colleges. And I sent a text to the chief of staff. How are we going to teach them to do medical technician? You can't do an IV on Zoom, right? So the things that you guys teach. So we had a lot of things that we just didn't know. So like any organization, TB was struggling as well, right? Nobody was investing in Chamber of Commerce or whatever we do. So luckily I saw this piece of news come across of the Economic Development Agency, which is a subset agency of commerce, had these grants. So we put together a grant on reshoring. What are we looking for? And I live in Houston. I sit on the Greater Chamber Board. I also sit on a large hospital board. And every day we're tracking respirators. How many respirators do we have left in the city of Houston? And one day we're down to 87 in the city of 5 million. And we're tracking ICU rooms. Like, where do you get the PPE? And it was all in China. So we put this grant together. We went after it, and EDA awarded us $750,000. We did a grant. And we're about 30 days of publishing the result. And the thing is to reshore jobs back from China, Malaysia, Indonesia, so we don't get caught again on the next COVID-20 or 21 with where's the manufacturing anomalies that we need to do. So we're not looking. We did, 10, 15 site visits, and we took a lot of data, and so we're about to publish that. But yeah, it was super important. And again, community colleges are going to be the answer to the things we're going to have to do to make sure that we're not going to get caught on a COVID 20 or 21.
Very good. A follow-up. In terms of that, kind of a pent-up demand, now that we've been through the pandemic, through the last presidential administration, kind of some pushback against China and others, that people are ready and willing to buy American-made products. How much of that is there? What does the data say, and will it last?
Well, cost still matters, but on a lot of these things that we want to build, you think about semiconductors, you think about auto manufacturing, you think about advanced manufacturing and energy. We need, I'm a big sports guy. Think about it as building a super team. To compete with China, it can't just be the United States by itself. If it's America first without the help of Mexico and Canada, we're not going to be able to reshore the way we could if we're all working together. So, for us, it's very important that we make sure that as we're building things like electric vehicles or semiconductors, that we're getting our friends from the north and the south engaged. And in fact, some of the federal legislation that's moved through now reflects that and looks at North American content. And I think a state like Texas really benefits because we're not just a border state, we're the border state that does far and away the most trade. So the more things are reshored and the more we're involving our partners to the south and to the north, the stronger the Texas economy will be.
In addition to that, things that we look at as well, it's not just health like COVID, but like the stuff you read in today's paper, China threatening Taiwan. 80% of advanced chip manufacturing is made in Taiwan. And the Chinese are going around the world and they're buying stockpiles of the raw materials to make chips today. And so you talk about national security. So as we sit around the TAP, talk about the stuff that we want to offer a bill, whether it's local or state or federal bill, we look at the threats that come to Texas. There is some raw material in West Texas that we're looking at as far as protecting it. You see some ugly language against China buying property in Texas. A lot has to do with the fact that we cannot allow foreign governments to own raw materials. And again, if you read where the president of China is threatening Taiwan, if that happens, if we lose manufacturing, you talk about not getting the car ready, those chips are going to be restricted. We're not going to get them. So as far as we look ahead, we look at the things that are a threat to Texas business, and look at Ukraine and Russia and the food insecurities and where's the grain and those things. So it's just not just kind of business bills. We look at kind of overall on the enterprise and what could affect Texas business, and that's how we go about our job at TAB.
And to me, the incredible thing is, you think about it, right now, Texas is number one in semiconductor exports, number one. And we had great leadership, both sides of the aisle in Congress, but I'll particularly call out Senator Cornyn and Congressman McCall for their work to make sure the CHIPS bill. And then you think of energy, we're the energy capital of the world. So we can continue to use our position, our geographic position, and our relationships, particularly south of the border. Before this conversation started, I heard there's programming being developed with the governors of Tamaulipas and with Nuevo Leon. This state and this region are going to be extremely well positioned.
Glenn's probably been in Mexico 10 times in the last 2 months. I see his schedule. So there's a tequila count somewhere in the back somewhere. And this chairman hasn't been invited, by the way.
You're always invited, Massey.
Thank you, gentlemen. Makes a lot of sense. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Referencing your impressive resume, Massey. Taking none away from yours, Glenn. But this question is for Massey. give us your recommendations for local Hispanic leaders here in the Valley. How do you ascend to national roles and prominence?
Painfully. I will tell you that in this room, I mean, sometimes a friend of mine asked me one day, all the things that I do, is it worth it? And I sat at the kitchen table and my wife, she asked me to answer the same question, and the answer is absolutely worth it. I mean, I'm involved in an organization called APAC, the American Israel Policy Action Committee, and 2-3 of my colleagues are here. Deborah, Annabelle, who else? Stand up. These are my APAC folks. And that's it. So what we do is that this is the most influential Jewish lobby in the country, and we're on the national board of that. And so I'm the kind of the point person of Latinos. I'm probably the highest-ranking non-Jewish organization. Israel is so important to the United States, with our security in the Middle East. And so people ask me, why are you involved in Judaism? Well, as a practicing faithful Catholic, when I go to church on Sunday, there's a guy up there hanging. He's a Jew. His mother's a Jew. His apostle buddies are all Jews. If the Middle East is transformed in a different direction, the core we all go to church for is gone. So Annabelle and Deborah and Saul, all of us, we lobby the Congress for the protection of Israel. And so it's not Judaism. So you look at the ascension of like local leaders like them. With Seneca, what he's doing with the RGV, what he's done for the longest time in the RGV. I mean, there are some significant players here doing. Rose Benavides, everybody knows Rose Benavides. Not only the chair of South Texas College Board of Regents, but she is the national chair of the Association of Community Colleges, right? ACCT, right? The national chair of all community colleges and universities. So there is a lot, but the thing is, there's not enough of us, right? We go to these big rooms, and you sit, and the people that look like us are limited. So it is just getting in there and giving a damn and asking the accountable questions of getting in there. And the thing is, I don't know, 30 years ago, I went to a Hispanic Chamber event. There was some guy yelling about how good he was. I'm like, really? So I started asking the accountable questions, and there really wasn't anything behind it. So I would challenge you to challenge me. What is it real? And the thing is, get in the game. You can't expect that somebody sitting next to you that they're going to do it for you. We need more people to step into leadership roles, and the further you step into it, and the more you take charge of it, the more you get in the game, and you'll see more people like us sitting at tables of authority. So yeah, it just got to give in. You cannot give up on being, again, like APAC. I mean, what's so important to people in the room, they don't know, but it's like global implications, right? So yeah, you just got to step into it and not be afraid.
Well, I'm deeply grateful. It would be a lot easier for me to explain why I support AIPAC, because my wife is Israeli, and I met her at an AIPAC convention. It's also, what's interesting, I don't know if it's a little bit of like the modern day trading places. I've never been invited to a White House Hanukkah party, but I did get invited to the Cinco de Mayo party. I had to explain, I'm a Jewish guy originally from the Bronx, and there was like a pause. I said, well, you're still invited. Yeah, I still attended. But it was a great party. But you know what Massey is saying is it's getting involved, it's determination, it's purpose driven, and groups like Chambers are very, very important, because when you think about where we are in this point in time, the public has lost a lot of respect for a variety of institutions, but one that has really held up are Chambers, and underneath that, the public probably views small business as highly as any entity that's out there. So, you know, I want to thank you all for supporting this great Chamber of Commerce, because by doing that, you make us stronger, you make Texas stronger, and you make America stronger. So I thank you for all being here today.
Thank you all for that. And Massey is from Corpus Christi, Texas, so a little closer to home.
Right, high school. Corpus Christi.
I think we found our quote of the day. Get in there and give a damn. I love that. So, how should businesses from the RGV go about doing business with big cities like Houston?
Well, you know, I sit on a board of the equivalent of the RGV partnership. It's called the Greater Houston Partnership. 123 major CEOs, probably 23 Fortune 100 CEOs are my peers, right? Back in the day, I used to sit, I was like a newbie, I used to sit next to Ken Lay from Enron on his board, like, oh my gosh, these are like big CEOs. But I think we ascended, right? And so, but you know, when I look at the agenda of the Greater Houston Partnership Board meeting, it's online, you can see it. We talk about trade, we talk about electric vehicles, we talk about air attainment, about the air, you know, can you get pollution? I mean, we talk about all these issues. We never talk small business. I've never, in the years I've served in the board partnership, have had a small business agenda. And so I've been pushing the board to get more engaged. We have 87 chambers of commerce in Houston, Texas. I mean, everybody's got a chamber in Texas. There's a massive chamber of commerce. But the thing is, we have white organizations, and the thing is, we need to convene them. But look, we have these major corporations in Houston, Texas. You need to come and find it. We have a lot of events for public. The Hispanic Chamber, Laura Murillo, our president, very aggressive in pushing the Houston market. But you need to come. I mean, I will tell you that I sit on this board, and we have a DEI board. I sit on that board, and it's very unpopular at this time, as you probably read the paper, but we push through it. We talk about the value of having diverse business at the table. And we get pushed from the inside of the board, guys don't want to do it. But there is a great opportunity for you to come to Houston and meet. So I would invite you to go to houston.org/about, and you'll see the board directors. You'll see our names in there. Find the corporation you want to do business with. Check with Cynthia. She'll get with me, and I'll connect you, right? You know I'll do that. And then you come up. I don't sell for you, but I'll put you at the table. But you've got to come, and you don't have to go that far. And there isn't any reason why a Houston Hispanic firm couldn't do business with a RGV Hispanic firm. We can do our own domestic mission here. So you don't have to go do business with the big guys. And so yeah, we have to be more communication, and probably need to do some kind of line of communication, or maybe inbound, outbound missions inside the state of Texas. Maybe that's something we do at TAB. Start these internal missions.
It's a good idea.
Very good. I can remember my economics professor saying that anytime we import dollars to a region, it's good for the region. So I know you have a special connection to Excelencia in education. Tell us about that.
Sometimes somebody read my bio one time, and somebody asked me if I needed a psychologist to figure out who I wanted to be when I grew up. I served in committee down boards, and so I served in a board called Excellence in Education, as I said earlier. I served 6 years in the Board of Regents back during George W. Bush, and we used to get these stacks of books, construction, the stuff that you put out, construction, getting the president a raise. I mean, everything's in this book, right? We had one section in there, and it's called Minority Enhancement, had nothing in it. So kids would come to school one semester, and they would drop out, nobody knew. So for 6 years, I went to war with the chancellor. I mean, literally, if you go back in 1995 to 2001, and you look at that open book record, everything you say goes in the book. And the stuff that I said, I put pressure. I'm almost embarrassed to say, but I made a fool of myself, because I wanted them to understand that it was important to realize why kids were dropping out, particularly Latinos, first generation, weren't getting in there. Kids, Latinos that went to school, were having to copy books because they weren't getting their financial aid to the 6th week of school, right? So I went to war, and so my name got out, because I was, I got called a lot of things, but the thing is that I was on a Zoom call with Excelencia, and I was asked by the president, co-president, Anita Brown, about my background. We heard about you kind of slaughter yourself all over Texas politics on education, but it's important. So Excelencia is a national organization, and it focuses on grouping of the over 550 Hispanic serving institutions in the country. And to be Hispanic serving, all you need to do is for your population, student population, to be over 25%. Well, we'll be every day that Ricardo Solis goes to work, they're HSI. However, our group focuses on the intentionality. I tell people there's no such thing as Hispanic serving. Here's Hispanic enrolling. You get us in, and then you don't get us out. But Excelencia focuses on the serving part. And if you can prove to us and our board of directors that you're intentional, and you can show us best practices, you can show us metrics that you graduated intentionally Latinos, we award you the Seal of Excelencia. I am proud to announce that South Texas College of Carlos Solis is a SEAL certified school. And so is the UTRGV, a certified school. The thing is, you can sit back on your laurels and say, by the way, we're HSI, and we get, there's a high five from the federal government, but the intentionality matters. Out of the 550 school HSIs, only 30 in the country have ever received the seal or excelencia. So I'm the only non-educator on the board, because I'm a business guy, because what I want is for Ricardo Solis to provide me 500 kids every semester that can get a job. Because that's what Glenn and I want, is for, as we attract business to Texas, I need a workforce. And if you're intentionally graduating them and getting more Latinos, is good for our community. So tomorrow at TAB, we'll have about 25 college presidents and 2 chancellors tomorrow at TAB. Yep.
Thank you for that. And if you
But I
don't mind,
do have a job that pays my bills.
if you don't mind, Dr. Solis, I'm sure I can speak for you. Your STC and UTRGV are very proud to hold the seal of excellence. So, let's switch to the state legislature. I know y'all have mentioned it already. The 88th Texas legislative session is in full swing. We're at day 105 of 140. Not that we're counting.
We're counting.
Yeah, we're counting. It's
329, so he died.
Why don't we start talking about the preemption bill? That's a bill by a legislator from Lubbock, HB 2127. Tell us a little bit about that and Tab's position on the bill.
Sure. Yeah, we have supported that type of legislation for a number of sessions, and we recognize there's chambers across the state that have a different viewpoint, but this is ours on the regulatory consistency bill. Is that businesses in the state of Texas, there's a set of rules and regulations on the state level that govern a lot of employment activities that are pretty rigorous and appropriate. We do want businesses to operate in a way that ensures public safety and health. The issue is that Texas is a very, very, very big state, and for a number of businesses, small businesses that are looking to expand, it's very, very difficult to do so if they have to follow a whole set of different rules. So Chairman Dustin Burrows in the House and Senator Creighton in the Senate have been putting quite a bit of effort into building a strong coalition and a bipartisan coalition of legislators to support the notion that if the state has regulated in a particular area and employment activities being the one that we're most interested as a Chamber of Commerce, then that would preempt localities from going any further in those areas. I'm just going to say, I think a little bit of context is also important. When you look at the Texas miracle and the fact that we're in the strongest economy right now, not just in the country, but in the planet, what are the 4 or so things that have led to that? 1, zero income tax. That really does make a difference, particularly for entrepreneurs that want to sell a business. This is a much better place to be than, say, California or where I was born in New York. Light but efficient regulations and including a great civil justice environment. We've been here in a past event in the RGV with TLR, Texans for Lawsuit Reform, which does a better job than any organization in the country on making sure that we have a good rules of the road when it comes to our legal systems. I'd say number 3 is infrastructure. And by that, I'm very broadly defining it. Community colleges, universities, ports, roadways, the stuff that you need to have a functioning society. And number 4 would be economic development incentives, which we might talk about. But that regulatory piece is very, very important. And we think that the regulatory consistency bill will make a state that's already very good in the regulatory area even better.
What else is going on at the Capitol? In particular, what might have impact in the RGV? What should we be looking out for? And what are maybe the top two or three other bills?
Well, our biggest legislative agenda is House Bill 5, and it's the Job and Security Act. We're not supposed to say Chapter 313, or else we'll get thrown off the stage. But that was a prior bill, and it got a lot of negativity to it because some school districts were getting funded. But this is a bill where school districts were involved in taking money and adding incentives to a deal, and then the state did a backup of the money so that the school didn't lose out. But the thing is, it was a job creator, and if you look at how politics happens, right? They find themselves as progressives, moderates, libertarians. Everybody has their own view. But at the end of the day, they all want a job in their district, regardless of whatever party they want. But they just want to be for their party, make these rules, right? So we have to dance to that. And I will tell you, Glenn and I have these late night calls because, we get yelled at by legislators because they want us to support their bill. And we have kept parts of our head lopped off by the big three. As you told last week, you saw where the governor wanted vouchers and the House voted totally against vouchers. Dan Patrick wants compression, and the speaker feeling he wants appraisal caps. And that bill passed 140-9. And so we have to be careful because our number one bill is House Bill 5 because we need to have incentives. When Governor Perry named me chairman of economic development here in McAllen, a month later we had September 11th. And at that time, all jobs fell off the table. You guys remember the Queen Isabella Bridge, part of it collapsed. Well, our tourism vein went. And so also, how do we compete? Only we compete with a business incentive called the Enterprise Fund. And so the first deal we did was Toyota in San Antonio, and we didn't have money. So we had to sweep budgets of agencies to give them the $5 million to do a railroad track from the plant to the railroad spur. And then we did the other incentives. We spent $165 million of your money to bring incentives in, but it yielded like $3 billion in jobs and about 10,000 new jobs in Texas. And so it's a great investment. But so we continue to push for the renewal. There are 17 funds in Texas. 4 of them or 5 of them are grants that you can go out and get. Like the Texas Enterprise Fund is a grant, but we have military funds, we have small business funds. So we need to have continue to have those investment funds invested and properly staffed by the Texas Department of Economic Development. And those are good for small business. So we need to have continued legislation that is focused on the things that are good for our communities.
We appreciated that Mayor Villalobos testified in favor of HB 5 because there's a lot of great projects that have a great shot of coming to fruition if we have this temporary property tax abatement. Because for a lot of these manufacturing facilities, there's incredible competition across the country and across, really across the globe. And we're at a point, because we were talking about nearshoring, where last year it was just reported over $200 billion of manufacturing construction was taking place. And I'll bet that 2023 will even be higher. So you're getting all these investments being made, and you have neighboring states like, or states in the neighborhood, like Louisiana, Georgia, North Carolina. They're not shy about putting together an incentive package. By the way, in large part modeled after the work of Massey and Governor Perry 20 plus years ago. I mean, other states recognized what was happening and put together their own programs. The bottom line is we need HB 5, Corpus Christi Chair Todd Hunter is the sponsor of this. We need this to continue to keep Texas on top when it comes to these big capital-intensive investments, particularly in the energy, auto manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, and semiconductor areas.
So the usual shenanigans between the House and the Senate, the competition between the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker,
it's real. I mean,
it's real. We call it a logjam, a train wreck, whatever you want to call it. What does that pose for the bills that y'all want to see passed? We're getting close to the end.
Again, I say it's politics. Now we are a business. We have a state affairs committee, so all these major businesses are represented at our table, and we just don't pick an idea and run with it. We hear the voices of all sides, right? We invite the competition to the table, then we vote it out. And this state affair was a recommendation on particular House bills, or we'll drop a card against the bill. And so, like, you know, it's important for all you to know that, let's say, for instance, all of you want to go and support HB5, you could, and the term is called drop a card, and say, I support House Bill 5, and you submit it, and it goes part of the record, right? So I think TV has gotten over 250 chambers of commerce in Texas signed up in support of HB5, but, you know, Dan Patrick has his own ways of dealing, and so they hold each other hostage for the bill. And our number one deal is HB5, number two is HB8, right? Yeah. Community College Finance Reform. So community colleges today were funded based on enrollment. How many kids did you enroll and buy with a bucket of cash? So when Lone Star College in Houston, Texas, they enrolled 100,000 kids, they got a bunch of money, and Ricardo had a portion of that, he only got a portion of the money. We've helped change the rule with Woody Hunt to be on performance-based. So he brings 100 in and 100 get through, he gets more money than the guy who did 100,000 and only 50 did. So we've changed the rules and we have to lobby that, right? And say we need to be supportive. Well, people don't like that. You know, we get pushed and shoved, and I'll tell you, and I'm serious, we get these horrible calls from people saying, you guys don't know what the F you're doing, and you're gonna do this and that, and we stand firm. And I mean, I'm serious, we stand firm that this is important for business, and if you don't like it, click. So that is.
And I think, you know, you have to frame things also this way. That right now, you know, we've got 35, and thank you for the shot clock on the session. We've got 35 or so days left, and this still has the opportunity to be the best session in the history of the Texas legislature. Why? In part because we're sitting on a $33 billion surplus. So we had the controller, Glenn Hager, at the Texas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Coalition event last week. $33 billion. Put that in perspective. That's more than the budget of most states. And to put it in further perspective, California has a $22 billion deficit. So there's a lot of resources, and for the RGV, when you think about infrastructure, there is a very serious discussion of how to spend those dollars on things like broadband, ports, water. Senator Perry has been a big leader on the port issues, as have Corpus Christi and some others, in terms of on the water side of things. So, you know, things pretty much anywhere seem to get a little bit choppy at about this point in time in the legislative process, regardless of who's in control. But our role is to try to bring the parties together and have all of the issues wrapped into a bow, so we feel like we've come out of this session as an even stronger, more prosperous state.
Just last week, the House and the Senate conference committees were named. I believe in the House, the chair is Mary Gonzalez from El Paso. In the Senate, it is Joan Huffman. And so the senators in the House, they'll convene and they'll fight it out. But, you know, we have a great lobby team at TV. We've gone out and got the best. We retained Louis Saenz, who is Governor Abbott's chief of staff. We have Ray Sullivan as a lobbyist, who is Rick Perry's chief of staff, and Logan Spence, who is Dan Patrick's former chief of staff. So we got some great horsepower in there. So these guys are very in touch with legislators, but so we're fingering the pulse of policy that happens by the minute at the Capitol. So we're hoping that as we go to conference, I'm hoping that the big elephants will stomp each other out and one elephant will win. I don't want to be under that elephant when the elephant collapses, so we're really careful not to get in the middle. For us, it's not politics, it's business. And so we'll stay all the way to the end, and if we get stopped, it is what it is, but you, as members of TV, we're going to stay really focused on the policy.
We have weekly calls with our chamber friends every Friday to not just give an update, but to also hear what's going on on the ground.
One last question on the legislative session. At this time in the session, people always love to ask this question, and you really need a crystal ball for it. Will we have a special session?
I was waiting for Massey's answer, and then I was going to say ditto, regardless of what he said.
I think we'll know in a week or two because, the big issue, there's two big issues. One is HB5, which is our issue, and then three, vouchers and property tax relief, right? With the $33 billion, we have to have, and I think there's gonna be I think that's gonna be the easiest, because there's not a moderate point on compression and appraisal cap. And so I think that hopefully those guys will come to it, but the other one's philosophical on voucher, so, that's gonna be a tough one, so I don't know, you're right, you can flip a coin, it could go either way. But Glenn and I are looking past the session. You know, we talked about the presidential election coming around next year, and Glenn and I are really focused on a meaningful workforce-related immigration policy. Glenn is probably the foremost expert on immigration, and we worked in Arizona in 14 states. And by the way, when we were not looking for a new president of TAB, I was like, we're gonna find somebody. I went through all these chambers of commerce. I said, man, like this Arizona Chamber of Commerce, man, they know what they're doing. We stole them. We just took them. So that's why we got them over here. But we really, Glenn and I have met with Speaker McCarthy a couple times, and Scalise, and members of the House. We've met with Sinema in DC and in Arizona. I mean, we're aggressively seeking an immigration solution. What's going to have to happen is that there's got to be a House bill, maybe an enforcement bill in the House, a very basic enforcement bill that will go to the Senate, and then they'll do what they do, call it, hang a Christmas tree on it. They'll put all the immigration issues. There's a procedure in the House to force a vote on a Senate bill, so it'll go to the House, and even though the Speaker might not want to put it up, it has to be voted on. So Kristen Sinema, John Cornyn,
Probably Tony Gonzalez in the
Tony
House,
Gonzalez.
and Juan Ciscomani in Arizona.
Yeah, in Tucson, we have a freshman, he was born in Mexico, Juan Ciscomani, freshman, Republican, strong in immigration. Tony Gonzalez, I mean, you see some of the stuff that's going on with him. He doesn't care. He is going to be very strong for our community, and we're going to be no nonsense in his immigration policy. We have to have immigration reform. I mean, it is a workforce issue. There's 2 open jobs today for every Texan that are unfilled, and those unfilled jobs is revenue to our state. And so we have to have an immigration policy. And right, we're the strongest border, 285 billion, by the way, with Mexico. Yeah.
It's so important, and you start with the DACA population and the Dreamers. I mean, just think about with the workforce shortage. You know, right now Texas is like 14.3 million employees, an all-time high. If you took 100,000 people out of the Texas labor force, it would be very painful. But you could flip it if you get good immigration reform, and that includes more security. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive. They actually probably go together. We could have an even stronger economy, because as Massey said, what's unique about this point in time, particularly in Texas, 2 jobs open for every one to fill. And wherever I go in Texas, anywhere, east, west, north, you name it, metropolitan area, rural area, the number one issue is the need for more workers, and connected to that are more skilled workers. And here we are in the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world, and we have the issue of the best and the brightest and the hardest working people on the planet want to work here and contribute. Let's take advantage of that.
I appreciate y'all broaching immigration and border issues. I was about to skip down to that, but we're up against the clock now. So let's get the floater microphone, if y'all don't mind. If anybody has a